Let's talk about the ghosts in your machine. The digital ghosts that haunt you all day long. I'm talking about the pre-anxiety you feel in the morning, that split second of dread before you unlock your phone. What dumpster fire awaits you in your email? What bad news has broken overnight? What social obligation did you forget about? Your day hasn't even started, and you're already bracing for impact from a threat you can't even see yet. I'm talking about the in-process anxiety of modern communication. Seeing those three little dots bouncing in a chat window, a visual cue that someone is forming a judgment about you in real time. You're held hostage, waiting for a verdict. Or the agony of the read receipt with no reply, which allows your mind to write 1,000 stories of rejection and social failure. And of course, there's the post-event anxiety. The endless mental replay of a conversation, a meeting, a date. You dissect every word you said, cringing at your own awkwardness, convinced you made a fool of yourself. You lie in bed at night, not resting, but running a relentless post-mortem on the day's minor social infractions. And then there's the main event, 3 a.m., the witching hour. That's when your brain's personal horror director boots up the catastrophe channel. Suddenly, you're not just lying in bed. You're watching a high-definition surround sound movie of your own future implosion. That awkward thing you said at work, you're definitely getting fired. That weird text from your partner, the relationship is over. That tight feeling in your chest, it's a rare, incurable disease. The feeling, that cold, gut-wrenching dread, is incredibly real. And then the morning comes. The thing you were worried about either doesn't happen, or it happens and it's fine. You're left with this weird emotional hangover, exhausted from a battle you fought entirely inside your own skull. Why does the thought of the bad thing feel so much worse than the actual bad thing? This isn't a bug in your system, it's a feature, but a feature designed for a world that no longer exists. And 2,000 years ago, a man who lived under more real, life or death pressure than we could ever imagine was spitting absolute facts about this. He wrote the original user manual for dismantling the anxiety machine. His name was Seneca. Now, before we dive into his wisdom, we need to understand the man, because he is one of the most fascinating and controversial figures in all of philosophy. If Epictetus, who we've talked about, was the hardened minimalist who built his philosophy from the ground up as a slave, Seneca was the absolute opposite. He was a one-percenter, a master of the universe, a man of staggering wealth and power. This is the great paradox of Seneca. He wrote essays praising poverty while owning hundreds of villas. He preached the virtues of a simple life while operating as a high-powered political operator and, essentially, a hedge fund manager. For centuries, people have called him a hypocrite, and maybe he was. But there's a more interesting way to look at him. Seneca was a man attempting to practice a philosophy of inner peace and virtue in the most corrupting, high-stakes, and dangerous environment imaginable, the imperial court of Rome under a psychopathic emperor. His life was a high-wire act, and his philosophy wasn't written from a peaceful retreat. It was forged in the heart of the fire. He was born in Spain but made his name in Rome as a brilliant orator and writer. His success earned him powerful enemies, and he was exiled by the Emperor Claudius to the desolate island of Corsica for 8 long years. This was his first great test. Stripped of his wealth, his status, and his home, he turned to philosophy for survival. It was in exile that he truly became a Stoic. Then, in a stunning reversal of fortune, he was recalled to Rome for the most dangerous job in the world, to be the personal tutor to the last remaining male heir, a volatile teenager named Nero. Seneca's job was to shape this boy into a wise and just ruler. For the first few years after Nero became emperor, it seemed to be working. Seneca, along with the praetorian prefect Burrus, were the true rulers of Rome. and this period was known for its stability and good governance. But the darkness in Nero grew. The young emperor became increasingly paranoid, extravagant, and bloodthirsty. He had his own mother, Agrippina, murdered. Seneca, as his advisor, was forced into the horrifying position of having to justify this matricide to the Roman Senate. He was chained to a monster. Can you imagine the anxiety? He wasn't imagining worst-case scenarios. He was living next door to them. His letters and essays from this period are not abstract thoughts. They are the desperate attempts of a man trying to use philosophy to keep his own soul intact, while his world descended into madness. Eventually, he fell from favor. Nero, tired of his old teacher, accused him of being part of a conspiracy to assassinate him and ordered Seneca to commit suicide. And here, in his final moments, Seneca gave the ultimate demonstration of his philosophy. Surrounded by his weeping friends, he remained calm. He comforted them, reminding them of the Stoic principles they had studied. He met his death with a courage and tranquility that became legendary. He proved that even in the face of the ultimate hurt, he would not be broken by fright. His life was a contradiction, but his death was a testament. So when this man talks about anxiety, we should listen. The first tool in his kit is a diagnosis. He cuts right to the heart of the problem with a statement that is as true today as it was in ancient Rome. He wrote that we are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more in imagination than in reality. This hits hard. Our capacity for imagination, our greatest evolutionary gift, allows us to suffer from things that haven't happened, may never happen, or that have already happened and are over. The actual hurt of life is often sharp, but brief. The fright from our imagination is a dull, chronic ache that can last for days, weeks, or years. Modern neuroscience shows why Seneca was so on the money. Your amygdala, your brain's ancient threat detection system, cannot tell the difference between a real tiger and an imagined negative outcome. A stressful email triggers the same primal fear response as a predator. Your prefrontal cortex, the modern rational part of your brain, knows the threat isn't lethal, but your amygdala is screaming, "We are going to die." That feeling of being frightened is your body physically reacting to a movie that is only playing in your head. This brings us to the second quote, which is Seneca's direct attack on the excuses our anxious brain makes. Our brain tells us, "Hey, this worrying is productive. If I suffer about this now, I'll be prepared for it later." In his Letters from a Stoic, Seneca calls BS on this. He says, "He suffers more than necessary, who suffers before it is necessary." This is one of the most profound life hacks you will ever hear. Worrying doesn't soften the blow. It just guarantees you feel the pain twice. And often, the version you create in your head is 1,000 times worse than the real thing. It's like paying interest, in the form of anxiety, on a debt you might not even owe. Frank Herbert's sci-fi masterpiece Dune has a perfect artistic expression of this Senecan idea, the famous litany against fear. I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me. This is pure Stoicism. It's the recognition that the feeling of fear is just an internal weather pattern. Your job is not to fight the storm, but to observe it, acknowledge it, and let it pass without letting it convince you that it is reality. So, how do we do this? How do we stop paying the anxiety tax? Seneca and the Stoics gave us a toolkit. The first tool is premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. This is not worrying. Worrying is vague, emotional, catastrophizing. The premeditatio is the calm, rational exercise of asking, what is the realistic worst-case scenario, and what is my rational, step-by-step plan to deal with it? Worrying is panic. Premeditation is planning. It takes the terrifying, imagined monster and turns it into a manageable set of problems. The second tool is negative visualization. This is about cultivating gratitude for the present. You spend a moment intentionally imagining that you have lost the things you value. You do this not to create anxiety, but to then open your eyes and be flooded with an immense sense of gratitude for the reality that these things are still here. It pulls your mind out of the imagined, terrifying future and anchors it firmly in the good fortune of the present moment. The third tool is to practice objectivity. When you feel that wave of fright rising, describe the situation to yourself in the most boring, factual language possible. Your mind screams, "My partner is mad at me, and the relationship is falling apart." You correct it out loud if you have to. I received a one-word text message in response to my paragraph. This practice strips the event of the terrifying story your imagination has layered on top of it. Your anxiety is not a prophecy. It is a creative writing project from the most primitive, most paranoid part of your brain. Seneca, living in the shadow of a murderous emperor, learned how to master his own mind. He learned to distinguish between real threats and imagined ones. His wisdom is not about becoming a fearless robot. It's about learning to see our fear for what it is. A signal, not a sentence. A suggestion, not a reality. Remember his diagnosis and his warning. We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more in imagination than in reality. And because of this, he suffers more than necessary. Who suffers before it is necessary? Stop paying interest on debts you don't owe. Stop letting your lizard brain write your future. It's time to take back the pen. Thank you for joining us at the Inner Citadel. If this video helped you take a breath in the face of your own fear, do us a solid and hit that like and subscribe button. We'll see you next time.